Hare Krishna, dear devotees, it's Chandra Vadna Chaitanya Das, and it's Saturday. So welcome to Saturday. So Saturday we do our rest and our retreat program here at the Bhakti House, but this particular Saturday is a really special Saturday because it is also the disappearance day of Śrī Īśvara Purī. Okay? So Śrī Īśvara Purī, his disappearance day is today. Now, we observe the disappearance day of Śrī Īśvara Purī, who was actually the spiritual master of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. So in the Gauḍīya Vaiṣṇava tradition, disappearance days, they're not occasions of like sorrow, like sadness, like where someone passes away, we mourn for them. They're actually days of remembrance. And so this is a way of remembering this person's divine qualities, and it's really a day of gratitude for them, and it's a day of reconnection in a sense. So for us, in terms of our lineage and our philosophy and Shastra and the way that we feel, by remembering them, a pure devotee never actually really leaves. So we can remember them and learn from their example. So why Śrī Īśvara Purī matters? So let's talk a little bit about Śrī Īśvara Purī. Let's actually remember him and then kind of see what we can learn here. So and by the way, guys, I did put together a blog post for you guys on the bhaktihouse.org website. So you could just go to that website. It'll also be in the description below this video as well. So if you want to just get there and then copy and paste that into your browser, you'll get right to the blog post. So first of all, Śrī Īśvara Purī, he was actually a disciple of Mādhavendra Purī. So okay, so you have, let me kind of give you a timeline here. So you have Mādhavendra Purī, and then he had a disciple, and his name was Śrī Īśvara Purī. And then Śrī Īśvara Purī had a disciple, and that is Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. So Śrī Caitanya, Lord Chaitanya, the incarnation of Krishna. So you see how this kind of goes through the disciplic succession. We have Mādhavendra Purī, Śrī Īśvara Purī, and then Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. So Śrī Caitanya, of course, is, who we are attributed to getting the holy names from, and how it became so popular and so popularized through the last several centuries. So you could see kind of where the importance of why we might want to go and look at who actually was the guru of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. So it's kind of interesting, right? We can look at in terms of Śrī Īśvara Purī to kind of get some more insight into like how all of this happened, and also maybe learn a little bit about his guru, Śrī Mādhavendra Purī. Now, if you guys are interested in kind of learning a little bit more and like kind of how we know this and everything, you can actually go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita text, and I believe it's in Adi Lila Canto 9, verses 10 and 11, that you'll actually see the account of where Mādhavendra Purī was the disciple, or was the guru of Śrī Īśvara Purī, and then in 11, you would actually then, if you read that, you would actually learn, especially like reading Prabhupada's purport, you'll learn a little bit more. Maybe we'll cover that if we have a little bit of time on this video, but for now, I put together some notes here just for the sake of getting to know Śrī Īśvara Purī a little bit better, and then also to talk a little bit more about him and kind of his character, his personality, and kind of get to more of an insight into who he was. So the Śrī Īśvara Purī actually is where Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, let's just really think about this for a moment. He accepted initiation from a spiritual master. So the Lord accepted initiation from a spiritual master. Why? Why did he do that? Well, it was to teach us, to demonstrate that spiritual life moves through humility and through succession. So through lineage, and that's kind of, in so many different ways, even outside of spiritual life, like there's familial lineages, your great-great-great-great-grandfather, and then so on and so on. And if it hadn't been for them, we wouldn't be here today, right? So, in that sense alone, we get a sense of gratitude, right? So we're not independent. We are dependent on the lineage, on the masters that have come before us, the gurus, the teachers, the great acharyas, and those that came before us. And so that's very humbling in a sense, And so in Bhagavad-gītā, chapter 4, verse 2, it explains, Evam parampara tam imam rajarasyo viduha. So the supreme science was received through the chain of disciplic succession. So truth isn't really invented, it's actually received. We receive the truth from those that came before us. So in this respect, parampara itself actually kind of preserves purity in a sense, right? And Śrī Īśvara Purī actually stands within this sacred chain. So without him, the current would, it would have been broken. But through him, divine sound, our Mahamantra, still continue to flow. So in terms of this living principle of what we call parampara, which is lineage, it's not symbolic, it's not historical decoration, rather it's a living transmission. The holy name travels heart to heart, so it goes from one heart to another heart to another heart, not just from one text, one book or something like that, to another book, to another book, to another book, but actually from the heart to the heart. So in the Śrīmad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 3, verse 21, it says, one who desires the highest good must take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master. So we're taking shelter today of this great guru, Śrī Īśvara Purī. So shelter, not admiration, not distant appreciation, but shelter, right? So Śrī Īśvara Purī represents that shelter. And when we honor him, we honor the principle of guidance, the humility to receive, the courage to serve. And spiritual life is not self-manufactured. It is inherited. And inheritance requires gratitude. And that's really the key here today. So the mood of humility. One defining quality of the pure devotee is humility, this idea of humility. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu himself taught the inner qualification required for constant chanting. Pranadada api sunichena taro eva sahishnana amanina mana dena kirtanaya sada harihi. One should chant in a humble state of mind, lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than a tree, without false prestige, ready to offer respect to others. In that state, one can chant constantly. So that's important to understand. Śrī Īśvara Purī embodied all of this, you guys. Through spiritually, though he was a very spiritually exalted personality, he personally cared for his own spiritual master. And that's one of the defining things. In fact, Śrī Īśvara Purī, in Prabhupada's purport in Adi Lila 9, verse 11, the purport there, he talks about like how Śrī Īśvara Purī actually used to clean up the stool in the urine of his spiritual master, Madhavendra Purī. And, he was getting up in age, and, he was to the end of his life. And Śrī Īśvara Purī served him so beautifully, like did everything so nicely for him, that Madhavendra Purī actually, said, my boy, what I can do for you is, is really just, ask Krishna basically to bless you, and to give you the mercy in that. And, of course, then we get Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, his disciple, and then, what a blessing that was for him. So what grace came on top of him in that sense. So it's really a beautiful story, like when you really stop to think about it. A lot of people don't really stop to consider this. A lot of devotees, maybe they've skimmed over this and just haven't really taken it to heart. But Śrī Īśvara Purī was, he was so humble, it almost makes me want to cry, to be honest with you. He was so humble and so serving. So service is his heart, it's his very core, his very being. And this was his love. Service was him, and he was love. So, when we serve others without obligation, that is loving that person. When we do it from the heart, we do it with kindness and humility, and all the characteristics that you would think of, that's really love. That's, sorry, I'm getting a little choked up here. But service was his identity, guys. And humility is what attracts mercy. And in this case, it really did. He actually ended up getting probably the greatest disciple one could hope for, which is Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu. So it's not position, it's not recognition, but rather it's humility. So that is really the key. So mercy flows through service, right? So wherever there's service, mercy is usually pretty close at hand. So bhakti is, like I said, transmitted from the heart, from one heart to another heart, so heart to heart. Mercy flows through service, and the guru does not manufacture grace, okay? He carries it. Like a river carries water to its source, so does a guru. Śrī Īśvara Purī carried that river quite faithfully, right? And because he served purely, and that river reached the golden avatar, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, and in that powerful sentiment, the holy name, the river actually just flooded the world with the Nama Sankirtan movement, so like chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so you can kind of think of us, like where we're at today, as kind of like these downstream recipients of this mercy, and had it not been for that, we wouldn't be receiving this mercy, and goodness knows where we would be at as devotees. But we're beneficiaries of service performed centuries ago, literally. And we are chanting because someone actually took the time to serve. And that realization is what naturally produces gratitude. So we can be very grateful just in the remembrance of Śrī Īśvara Purī in terms of this. So our reflection today is on this particular observance day, and it's also Valentine's Day today, and we did a special Valentine's message already, so you can check that post out as well, and that video as well, if you like. But you can think to yourself, I'm serving in this lineage. Am I merely just admiring it, or am I actually cultivating humility through it, through the lineage? Or am I, subtly seeking some kind of, recognition or something like that, or am I chanting with dependence, or with independence, or, so like on disappearance days, they can actually kind of realign us. They remind us that spiritual greatness is not measured through visibility necessarily. Like I said, Śrī Īśvara Purī, he was very humble. I mean, think about him, his master, his spiritual master, his teacher, his great teacher, Madhavendra Purī, someone that he had so much great love and respect for, someone that he served so heartfully, through in that. he was very sick and very ill. And if you've ever been around someone who becomes an invalid, and that's what Madhavendra Puri actually became. He became an invalid, unable to take care for himself, solely reliant on his own disciples. And his disciple actually is the one that took the time to care for him and love him and ensure that he was good and everything was nice. And so much mercy, so much grace there. Such a beautiful story. He was faithful, and that's another key point to make as well. There's this concept of faithfulness, right? That it's not about like what I do for, what someone has done for me, but how faithful am I to them? Like, how much is it in my heart to be faithful and to serve this person without regard or concern for anything else, without where am I gonna end up? What's gonna happen to me? Like I said, guys, mercy follows service. Real important idea to conceptualize here. And with that, you have God, and then you never have the loneliness or the fear or any of that. Bhagavad-gītā, chapter 18, verse 66, Krishna basically says, do not fear. I've got you. I've got your back here. There's one way of looking at that verse. Maybe I'm over paraphrasing that, but go read the verse. But when we read about the lives of the Vaishnava acharyas, we can be prepared, we prepare very much just a simple offering, and through that remembrance. And, observance is not necessarily a ritual performance that we have to do, but it's really about internally aligning ourselves. And, that is very humbling. It makes us more gracious. And so on this sacred day, we offer gratitude to Śrī Īśvara Purī, not as a distant historical figure, but actually as a living link in the chain that connects us to the divine love, Śrī Krishna. So may we inherit his humility, may we inherit his service mood, may we inherit his steadiness, and may we remember the current of mercy that flows through those who do serve. And so thank you so much for honoring this observation with the Bhakti House. Hare Krishna.